frequent fire was. In some of these places, it was like every 6 to 8 years. We're learning from history, and so we need to get fire back in those landscapes. There's a fire deficit. Whereas in Southern California, those warmer colors, those yellows, there's actually too much fire, mostly because of human-caused ignitions. So Smoky still has work to do down there. Next up, we have fire as a tool. So the words have already been mentioned today, that fire has been part of human history and culture for so long. And I kind of went on this deep delve and pulled up all these images and myths and creation stories, and so many cultures from around the world have fire as part of their creation or as something that was given to people as a tool, as a gift. And there's also human evolutionary biologists who believe that because we were able to harness the power of fire to cook food, we evolved to how we are today. So we have smaller guts, larger brains, and we have more time to do activities outside of eating. And so finally, today, what are we doing with fire as a tool? The words prescribed fire, controlled burn were mentioned already. So because we know that there's these areas that need fire for ecosystem benefit, that have a deficit of them, we're trying to bring fire back as a tool for many different reasons. So I've heard before that the idea is that these people just really are pyromaniacs and they like to go out to the forest and just light it on fire willy-nilly without any planning, and that could not be further from the truth. If you've ever seen a burn plan, which is the thing you have to do in order to have a prescribed fire, it's a very extensive document. And the biggest thing is that you have to identify what you're trying to do with that burn. So there could be a lot of different reasons why you're bringing fire back to the landscape. It can be restoration for a specific species, for a habitat, or it could be more around trying to mitigate hazard around a community, or it could be both. But when you're doing this, you have to state the objectives, the when, the how, and you also have to have a smoke management plan. So the idea is that when you have a prescribed fire, you can only burn on days when that smoke is going to go high into the atmosphere and not come and settle into human populations. And so we're having that kind of a little bit more control over the smoke that happens from a fire that needs to be there anyways, instead of these massive wildfire smoke events where we really, we're trying to put it out as fast as we can. It's just, I know I was here when I left, I went to Oregon because it was so smoky here when those big wildfires were hitting that I just couldn't breathe. And I'm a fire scientist. So, there are really impacts to humans and trying to kind of balance that and know that, we might have a little bit of smoke in the spring or in the fall, but we can deal with that versus the big wildfire smoke events. And of course, if we're also using fire to do fuel reduction, it is safer for our firefighters when they do have to go out and suppress a fire in an area that's already had some treatment. And as I mentioned, I know that these last couple of years, the summer has been kind of a relief, but the last years we've had a lot of tragedy, not just in communities, but also there are ecosystems that didn't used to burn, like in our deserts, and because of invasive species, it's now carrying fire where it shouldn't. So both habitats and people are being affected negatively by the fire. But there's still a lot we can do, and I like to think of it as kind of like different solutions at different scales. So we talked about already this idea of, and I promise I didn't know they were going to use the same words, but it's the same kind of idea. More of these good fires and less of these bad fires. And so we're talking about the landscape scale, the land management scales, restoring these fire ecosystems, reducing hazards. All of that work can be done. And it can be done on private or on public land, and it already is being done. And we're really trying to push those forward. And then when it comes to our communities, rethinking how we build these environments. And I don't have a ton of time to talk about this, so I just want to mention that if you, as an individual, want to start taking steps towards mitigating fire risk, the best place you can start is at your own individual home. Most homes that burn in these big fires are not from direct flames coming up, so it's not from a forest that's having the flame come right up to a house. It's from embers. And embers are the small pieces of flaming material that are carried miles in the wind. When they land on pine needles or on mulch or on something that could ignite, they then start the house on fire, but they might be surrounded by green vegetation. So the things you can do around your home, what we call home hardening, are really pretty effective even in some of those really catastrophic fires. It's not a guarantee. It's just like any natural disaster. We're trying to reduce risk. We can't necessarily admit it, but it is a big step, and we're seeing that that's really kind of where we're trying to move forward in California. Okay, next myth. The main reason for all these terrible fires is climate change. I absolutely want to admit that there are some factors that climate change is contributing to some of these fires. So we know that climate change is changing our weather patterns and our climate systems. So the fire seasons can be longer. The temperatures, both in the daytime and when we have a hot day and fires burning, it might move further. And then also at night, we're not having the low temperatures we used to. And that's really making it harder to get these fires under control when they're actively being suppressed. And also our precipitation. It's kind of been a shift in some areas from snow to rain, and that affects seasonal availability of water. And so all of these factors not just affect if a fire is burning through, but also affect vegetation. So it's affecting what's growing where, it's affecting whether or not there's dead material or more dead material. So it's all those things, and those are playing a big role in our fires of today, but there's also a lot of other factors. And they kind of combine together, and different fires maybe are more related to one thing than the other. As I mentioned, this fire suppression, so because we've had about 100 years where fire used to come through maybe every 10 years or so, and it just built up and built up. When these fires do start, it's really hard to put them out, and they have really intense effects. Ignition sources, so most of the fires in California are still started by humans accidentally, and so we still need to work on that. And there was a paper that was looking at climate change, and whether it was climate change or human population centers. And because humans are the ones who are igniting fires, especially during really bad times, during the summer, when you're out recreating, or during windstorms, when it's already going to go really bad, it's still the people who are driving the fires, not climate right now. It's contributing, but it's not the main factor in a lot of cases. And land use changes, some of the fires that we've seen burn are burning through fire scars from the past, but they used to be agricultural lands or wildlands, and now they're homes. So it's a lot harder for us to deal with, and it's a lot more impacting to us when those land use changes are burning through areas that used to be wildlands that are now homes. And finally, existing weather patterns. Wind-driven fires are one of our big issues in California, especially in these coastal areas. And it's the same phenomenon that's been happening before climate change. So the Santa Ana winds, the Diablo winds, they're all kind of created by the same phenomenon, and they're still going to keep coming. And this might be a little bit too hard to see, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. But basically, we're not totally sure what's going to happen with climate change in the future. So it could be a little wetter, or it could be a little drier. And even small changes in our predictive models are going to make big differences in our plant life. So kind of just the general gist, so right, we're Bay Area. We're up here in Vallejo. And you can see that there's a lot of, if it's a little drier, we're going to get a lot more deciduous woodland. We're going to lose a lot of our herbaceous plants, whether it's drier or wetter, and we're going to get a lot more shrublands, which is going to change our fire behavior in ecosystems as well. So my last slide is fire as a strategy. I've already kind of talked about these things, but the idea is that learning to live with fire, so having communities that can deal with fire when it comes through, not if it comes through, and having ecosystems that are able to respond to these uncertainties. Right now, a lot of scientists I'm working with are people who are looking at ecosystems where fire has been restored. So there's places in Yosemite where they've allowed fire to come back for since the 1970s. And so they're able to go into those forests and see what's happening. And they're finding they're more drought tolerant, that they're producing more water, basically less straws from the same cup that flows down to populations like in the Bay Area. And they also have more pollinator diversity. So a lot of these ecosystem things we rely on might be helped and might have more adapted ecosystems if we're restoring fire back. So my vision for California is hopefully somehow we can find a way to learn to live with fire as people and to have ecosystems that thrive in this uncertainty. And I think instead of questions, I'm just going to point out that, as I mentioned, there's a lot of great resources. There's so many great minds working on these solutions. And there's a couple ways you could get in touch with me or with resources. I just printed this today, but it's basically just a list of websites that I would recommend if you're looking for some specific resources, or there's a sign-up sheet. You can just write your name and email legibly, and you can check a little box, and I'll send this to you so you don't have to try and type in websites, or you can email me and I can get you in touch with some resources. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. Thank you so much for having me.
About 5 minutes or so for questions.
I get nervous and talk fast. Questions? Yeah.
I have a question about.
You have to repeat the question.
I have a question about relating to the fact that PG&E is being sued for contributing to the fires. And my question is, if we were to switch over to distributed solar, community-owned distributed solar, would that positively affect the fires that are going on now?
I'll answer with what I can for that. I'll try to repeat it.
Yeah.
So the question was, right now PG&E is under a lot of fire, forgive the pun there, for some of the fires that have happened. And if we were able to switch to, and let me know if I get this term right, but basically more locally based solar powered communities, would that affect fire? I'm not super familiar with the idea of like solar power versus other transports, and really what's happening with this, right, is that it's exposed power lines that can come together, especially during wind events and start fires. So anything that can be done to basically make electricity and utilities more resistant to fire would probably help. As I mentioned, emissions are still predominantly human caused, and one of those is from power lines. I know too that there's other utility companies in California. There's an example from San Diego, and basically they've spent a lot of money and time trying to make it so they're not ignition sources for wildfire, but it's taking a lot of money, and they're a much smaller community, much smaller utility. So PG&E, I know, is also putting a lot of money towards trying to do this wildfire prevention. And I think that the idea with that too, right, is if you have more locally based sources, you don't have to carry that electricity so far, and so there's less exposure.
It's more local. Fire hits in one area and not just the electricity. There would be other areas which still have their electrical supply.
Can I ask how local is it? Is it usually like a neighborhood or a community? What's the ideal?
I'm not sure what the idea is. It probably could be added on.
Yeah, and so just to kind of repeat for people who might be in the back, but the idea is that if you have more locally based electrical systems, that if one does get affected by a fire, it has to be shut down, and there's other areas that don't have to be, so there's still available resources. Thank you. Anyone else?
So you did touch on a fire-resistant material or something for a house that would be in the community, so the embers come and fall through the house and that starts the fuel. So what other ways would we be able to protect our homes moving forward so that we don't have these fires burn through our material?
So I would say the number one resource I have for that is this. There's a company that's actually an insurance company that's a research group, and they have been spending years testing what actually starts houses on fire. And they've come up with a list that's actually a retrofitting guide for Californian homes. And so it's, if you only have enough resources, here's where to start. And I might get them wrong, but there's like 7 places to look. So the first thing is, when it comes to defensible space, think about right next to the home. Think about that 0 to 5 foot zone. Don't plant trees there, don't have mulch there. Because if an ember or even flame, if there's like a space there where there's no flame that can touch the house, it's not going to catch the house on fire. The other really big one is vents. And the idea that, if this ember can come through into a vent, into the attic, onto insulation, it's going to ignite the fire or the house from the inside. There's also windows, decks, eaves, siding, and roofs, I believe. And so it's really this comprehensive idea, like, this is what, if a fire is coming through and it's an ember-driven fire and that's what's going to catch your house on fire, these are the places to really focus on. If it's especially if you're more in kind of what we call the wildland-urban interface, which is this idea that your house is out there in the woods, in these ecosystems, or in a grassland, you do maybe want to do some vegetation treatment right around your house. But there's actually some pretty good science behind knowing what we can do with our homes to make them more fire safe. Anything, is that good? Okay. Yes.
This is more fire safety and evacuation, so I don't know if it's your expertise. But in the Cobb fire, I read about people that had gone out on the golf course at night and escaped the fire and just let it burn over. Nice wide space, green grass, and a fire captain saved some folks in the Cubs fire, took them to a cul-de-sac. Then they were in a house with their backup plans. So we know that people there's places, safe zones that you can ride out the fire. So instead of, like Paradise, all getting on the highway at one time, like rush hour, it stops. why aren't we doing more to have safe zones and require that when we do building permits for communities?
Did everyone hear that, or should I repeat? Some thumbs up for repeat? Okay. So the idea is that, when we have fires like Paradise, a lot of these tragedies were happening because they were evacuating on these really narrow roads. They weren't able to get out in time. And so instead of having people evacuate, could we instead have safe zones? So golf courses or places that wouldn't burn in a fire, cul-de-sacs, pavement areas, these type of situations. And it hasn't really been done that much in the United States. However, Australia has had these safe zones. They might turn them something differently for a long time. And so the idea is that if you have the option to evacuate safely, it's always better. Because even people who are tried and true firefighters, when one of these huge fires are coming through, it's really hard not to run when it's coming at you. Like, even if you have the experience, they're just, it's like a human instinct. And so a lot of times people will, at least in Australia, they wanted to stay and defend their home, which is something we don't really do here that much either. And then basically just couldn't deal with the emotional capacity of this fire coming at them, and they evacuated too late. So one of the reasons why I think the safety zone is just now starting to be discussed is because we just thought we could always get everybody out. Paradise, they had drills, and they just never expected it to be all of it all at once. They expected it to be in sections, and it came through so fast. So safe zones are something I know some people are starting to talk about, whether it's a golf course, whether it's a school with a lot of green zone around it, high school, all these different things. We're starting to think about that. I think the ideal is still, if you can evacuate safely, do so. It also means, not only do you not have to deal with being there during the fire, but you also are not somebody that the emergency responders are having to worry about. You're not being exposed to smoke. So getting on is definitely always the best case. But I know that there are people who are looking at these safe zones.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you. How are we doing on time?
I think we have time for one question if somebody has a burning question, otherwise.
They're all burning questions.
One more question.
I work at the UC Master Gardeners in Napa, and we field a lot of questions from homeowners who want to know if there's something specific they can do in their gardens and their soils after a fire now that they're starting to rebuild their homes. I want to know if you have any specific suggestions, whether it's a large garden or a small garden. There's been so many people who have been asking.
So let me make sure I got this question right. It's basically after a fire comes through a property, how do you treat the soils and rebuild them to have a garden situation that's beneficial? And you're not so much asking about like what to plant, but how to deal with the soil.
How to deal with their soils now, if their foods are safe to eat, and if there's anything specific that you recommended they can do. Some have large properties, some have smaller properties.
I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that, but if you want to connect with me afterwards, I'm thinking like someone from FEMA or someone from a research station that does more with post-fire or even agriculture might have more information on that. So connect with me afterwards. But good question. You stumped me. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Daisy. Great presentation. And as you heard, she's going to be hanging around a little while at the end, and so you might want to catch up with some other questions if you want to. Don't go away yet, because we have one more piece of our program. Our mayor, Bob Sampayan, who is also a big supporter of this festival, is going to come up and give us a few words, and then he's going to be joined by Steve Gunsky and Tim McDonald to present some special awards. Steve and Bob are going to present this year's Wild Visionary Awards, and then Tim, who's the president of the Vallejo Community Arts Foundation, has a special award from VCAP. So with that, as Bob is walking up here, walk slow, Bob, because I'm going to say one more thing, which is I do see that at least one of our other city council members, Katie Easter, is here, and I want to recognize Katie for having been very active. She was on the steering committee the first year of this festival. Have I missed it? Are there anyone else from the city council here? I haven't had a chance to circulate around, but we appreciate all of their support. And with that, I'll turn these over to Mayor Bob, who, as I have said before, is a real supporter of nature, culture, and community. And the great thing about Bob as mayor is he shows up first.
Lee, I just wanted to mention that I didn't have to raise the microphone. Good. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. You know, every year this event gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it really warms my heart to see that we in this community embrace nature. That we as a community look at our surroundings and say, hey, we appreciate, we believe, and we love what we're seeing. And I really do want to thank the U.S. Forest Service. Thank you so very much. Your talk was phenomenal. I really enjoyed that. But I want to especially thank Steve Dunsky. Steve for his every year he says, you know, it's going to be this, it's going to be this, and it is. It's really over the top. So Steve, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. I'll keep it brief. You know, this year's event, Transforming Fire, really hit home for Ramona and me. We spent a couple of weeks over in Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. And while we were there, we talked to several folks, the Forest Service, about fire. And they were going on, and they had this huge presentation about how fire blooms the forest. And they used that term, blooms the forest. And for a moment I thought, blooms the forest. What does that mean? Well, when you have all these different plants, these different seeds and so forth that need fire to blossom, they bloom in fire. And this is just kind of serendipitous that that's what we're talking about this evening. So thank you so very much. Also, we're celebrating Smokey's 75th birthday, as well as Trevor's whatever birthday. You know, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Could we sing around a happy birthday to Smokey and Trevor, please? So, that being said, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Smokey and Trevor. Happy birthday to you. Just mentioned we're going to have Smokey Bear cupcakes. How cool is that? One other little thing about Smokey Bear, my grandson, who is 11, told me a joke many years ago. And he goes, Papa, what's Smokey the Bear's middle name? I went, I don't know, buddy. What is Smokey the Bear's middle name? And he looks at me and goes, I love that. So anyway, over the next few days, you know, there's going to be many exhibits, many things to see in Vallejo. And thank you to the Forest Service for putting this together. Thank you for all the volunteers that have come together. Please enjoy this artwork. This is phenomenal stuff. And I want to thank the folks that are loaning this to us. This is just, some of this stuff I go back and I remember as a youngster. I'm just south of 70. And I look at some of this and I'm going, wow, I remember that when I was like 6, 7 years old. And it really touches me. Again, I want to thank all our sponsors and for all of you that have contributed to this event. Most of all, I want to thank, again, our Forest Service and Steve for being here and putting it together. Sure, we'll do that.
So,
but you're not going to get me like you did a couple years ago, right?
I'm not going to prank them there. part of the program that I really like, because we get to thank all the wonderful people that really make this possible. And we can't thank everybody with a Wild Visionary Award, because then it wouldn't be as special as it is. The Wild Visionary Award is the highest award that we give at the Visions of the Wild Festival. We only give 1 or 2 a year. This year we have 2. And the mayor always helps me with the presentation. So, Bob, if you would open this envelope first, please.
Okay. Okay.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. One year that I opened the envelope, boy did I get right. Oh my, okay.
You can read it first and then...
For outstanding contributions to both Visions of the Wild, art exhibitions, and to outdoor activities, as well as many years of working to protect our beautiful wetlands and rivers, the 2019 Wild Visionary Award goes to Francesca Demjan. On behalf of Visions of the Wild.
Wow.
Official photographer here.
Whatever you do, don't smile.
Only you.
Only you can regret all this. Please.
Vallejo is a phenomenal community. I moved here in 1976, and I've worked as a wetlands biologist all that time. And one of my favorite things is working with kids, because it takes experiences to build knowledge and appreciation. And Visions of the Wild has been a program that has given kids experiences from art to activities outside. And I think that the transformation of the community to understand how physical processes affect our lives is so critical. So before I wander off too far into science, I will just say thank you so much. I'm very honored and appreciative.
Okay. The next one.
Come on, Bob.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Come on, Bob.
You know, every year he finds a way to juke the mayor. I'm not getting this, Steve. I'm really not getting this. I love you too, brother. Okay. For countless hours, managing logistics, recruiting volunteers, promoting the festival, catering events, while also organizing the Chalk Art Festival and volunteering for many other organizations in the land. The 2019 Wild Visionary Award goes to Robin Gross. She follows an agenda too, by the way.
So what do I get?
Vallejo has been, we have been here 30 years. And for a lot of that time, I was a corporate meeting planner and didn't get involved in the community at all. You know, I had clients all over and I just did my stuff. And then I started getting involved and I went, wow, this is really kind of fun. And in this particular instance, on Visions of the Wild, as a planner, this is the most fun because everyone has a job and everybody does the job. Which, if those of you who have worked on events, we all know that's not anything that ever happens. You know, so it's really my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be an ambassador for Vallejo. I really love this town. It's just amazing. If you need something and you're working on something, people come out to help. I just would like us to have a better reputation in the Bay Area, but I do have to say the difference, I know things are changing, because years ago when people would say, well, where are you from? And I say, oh, I live in Vallejo. And they're like, oh, really? Are you okay? So now when you say, I live in Vallejo? Oh, I hear there's a lot of artists up there, and there's a lot of things happening. And then I go into my spiel. And so I don't know how many, folks I actually bring to town, but I just think it's really, really fun to work here. And it's a great group of people. So thank you so much. Thank you.
In past years, that's what you got. Robin asked, what do I get? So you got a certificate. However, we're upping the ante this year. Unlike VCAF, which gives actual monetary awards to people, what we will do is offer Francesca and Robin the opportunity to donate money, which we will give them, to the cause of their choice in Vallejo, either arts or conservation.
Not in the car.
Okay, so we'll talk about that, but we will make $250 available to each of you to give that money. So thank you very much, and really appreciate all that you've done, as well as everybody else who, if you stick around, maybe you'll get a violation. Bob, I think our next order of business, Lee, is to introduce Tim McDonald, the president of the Vallejo Community Arts Foundation. And this is another very special award because it's about art, but it's really about community, right, Tim? So, Tim, why don't you come on up, and if there's any other board members or our executive director, Renee Conlon, is here. I'll let you take over, Tim.
Robert Bell.
Robert Bell. Ken is here.
Ken.
Here we go. So thanks everybody for coming out for Visions of the Wild. We've been very fortunate to have a great relationship with Steve Dunsky and the U.S. Forest Service in bringing the Visions of the Wild to the community. And it's been just an amazing journey, and it's not over yet. We're still in it. So, and I'm happy to be a part of this. So I want to introduce our board members that are present. Mel Gomez, Robert Litwin, Ken Mullen, Susan McDonald, Trudy Mahoney, and our newly hired executive director is Renee Conlon. And we're very proud to be here in front of all of you. And some exciting things happening with the Vallejo Community Arts Foundation. We have a summer arts camp that we hold annually. Actually, Celeste Nealon, who's not here now, but she was here earlier, she started it 18 years ago as part of what VCAF, was. It's about community arts, and it's about getting people, interested in finding out, what juices them. And we certainly know that the arts and the ability to bring that to children and influence them is so important. So that was just said. Robin just brought that up. It's so important that we touch the lives of children, and hopefully we do that, and we do that well. One of the things that we are doing, this is the second year that we've done this, we are, as an organization, felt it was very, very important to honor artists that contribute to the community. And so we started this last year, and Stan with his Mechanicals was the first artist that we made this award to. And it's about contributing to the community and not asking anything for your contributions. So this year, with a unanimous vote of the board, we are giving our community, Vallejo Community Contribution Artists Award, and it's $2,000, and we're giving it to Shannon and Kathy O'Hare. Please come up. So they skipped town. Shannon was working until probably 5:30, 6 o'clock doing the exhibit next door. Shannon is involved with the Summer Arts Camp. They're both involved with the Obtainium Cup, with the Mad Hatter Parade. You name it, they've got their signature on it. Kathy's working on the art mural that's going to go in front of La Clinica on their plywood face, but they're still involved with the community. So it gives me great pleasure to be able to award them the award for 2019 and to do it here in this venue. So I know Susan would like to say something. If there's any other board members that would like to speak, please.
Shannon and Kathy have been an integral part of the Summer Arts Camp for the last 6 years. They refuse to take any money for what they do. And those kids look forward every year to building art cars, and this year doing the labyrinth, and all of the things that they inspire the kids to do. And so I am just amazed that we have people in our community like Shannon and Kathy. The first actually art walk was an art windows project that one of our board members, Mark Martin, instigated. And Kathy and Shannon stepped up to do one of the first art windows. And that was the first time people in Vallejo had ever been out in the streets. And later on it became a monthly event, but that first event, they were an integral part of that. So I'm just so excited for what they've contributed and what they've done for the arts and our community for many, many years. Thank you to them, and I hope we'll give them a call and say, hey!
Somebody text them.
Shannon and Kathy, every Sunday, or most every Sunday, I'll take off from my house and go over to Pennsylvania Street where they do their wizardry. And time and time again, people will hear about them and pull up.
So I've got some time.
We're over there working at the
What's this about again?
again?
No, I was drinking! I was trying to drink! I was out on the street in front of the townhouse, and someone said, you gotta get back to the museum! What? Okay, what is this again? All right. I get to be told to be at City Hall or someplace, and
All right, so
Put this down and get
it is
money.
our pleasure to give you a $2,000 reward for Community Artist, Supporting Artist of the Year from the Beloit Community Arts Foundation. For you.
Shoulder that don't worry, I got it. I will cover your check. Oh, okay. Wow, there we go. That's how it works in Vallejo.
Kids and artists as well.
Okay, well, that's it for our program, but I think we can hang around a little while and still socialize and, Steve's got one more thing. Don't go.
Next year, 2020, 50th anniversary of Earth Day. It's going to be Earth Year in Vallejo. We're going to be celebrating culture and nature, how different cultures view nature around the world, and how we all need to look at this globally. So, we're not done with this one yet by a long shot. We're looking forward to seeing you in 2020 as well. Thank you all very much.
How long can folks hang around? I'm sure you want us out of here at some point. Okay.
Cupcakes, Smokey Bear cupcakes. Happy birthday, Smokey.